everyone. Women with Wings is a project organized by the Rotaract Club of IIT. As part of the project, we'll be interviewing exceptional female personalities. On today's episode of Women with Wings, we have yet another strong, empowering woman from the field of law. She is an attorney at law and a barrister at Law of England and Wales. She is also the director at the Helia Foundation, which is a consultant of the Gender Legal Network of Legal Action Worldwide. She is also a great advocate for the fields of women's rights, youth empowerment, and better political representation. We are honored to have Ms. Tarangee Mutucumarana as our guest today. Hi, ma'am.
Hi.
So let's begin with our questions for today. So the first question is, tell us a bit about yourself and your journey through the field of law.
Sure. So I started studying law just after O-levels, and before that I actually had no idea that I wanted to be a lawyer. So I had all these dreams of joining the NASA, I wanted to be an engineer, pilot, and then eventually after I finished my ordinary level exams, I realized that I wanted to study law. And I did for 2 years. I did my A-levels, and then I realized that it's something that I really like to do. And there onwards I went on to study for my bachelor's, my master's. I went to England to study for the English bar exam. I was at law college to study for the Sri Lankan bar exam, and now, well, I'm a lawyer and I'm a barrister, like you said, from England and Wales, and I practice in the criminal field mostly, but also in the family law field, the gender justice law field, labor and constitutional law. So I do this with 3 seniors, a President's Counsel and 2 other practitioners, and other than that, I think the reason that I wanted to study law was because I don't want to do a 9 to 5 p.m. desk job, and I want to be able to be in a different court, in front of a different judge, having different clients, having a different opposing counsel every day, and all those things really excite me. And I think other than that, the reason is that I feel like with our position of knowledge, we can do so much to help somebody else who really needs that help. And other than just being a lawyer, I think it's also necessary that we work towards the development of the law. So it could be either through the work that we do in court, or also through the other advocacy work that we do to make access of justice more easier for especially women in my field, women and girls, but also just for everybody.
That's great, ma'am. So the second question is, how is the representation of females in the field of law? So what can we as a country do to increase the female representation in all fields across Sri Lanka?
Okay, so in the field of law, firstly, I think I would like to speak about that, is if you take universities, the Colombo faculty, if you take Sri Lanka Law College, there's a majority of girls there. We have, I think, sometimes even up to 80% of girls. But then when you look at the practice, the field of work, you see that there's a huge reduction of the number of women who are actually practicing. So most women or girls go on to practice at maybe companies or firms, banks, etc., right? Which is perfectly fine. But if you're doing it because it's difficult to practice in court, then I see that as a problem, right? So I think the problems that some of my colleagues have faced, and as to why they practice in companies or firms, etc., is because of the late hours. For instance, working at a chamber, we sometimes work till 9-10 p.m. I know some firm chambers that work till around 12 or 2 a.m. in the morning. So that would be obviously very difficult for girls, especially girls who are taking public transport, right? And then we have all this gender bias that we have. Even for me, I was told as a girl I should not practice in the criminal law field. I should not practice in court, and that I should just, work at a firm or chambers where I would have better hours, and therefore would lead to be able to have, a happy family life at some point. So I think the responsibilities that a woman has at home, or that is rather put to her by society, makes it very difficult for her to focus only on work. So she has to come back home, she has to take care of the household, she has to take care of the children, the husband. All these stereotypes that we have in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, make it more difficult for a woman to practice in the bar in comparison to gentlemen. And also sexual harassment, I think, is one of the reasons that have been given as to why it has been difficult to work at the bar. And I think that doesn't only apply to the bar, it applies to all professions. So a lot of workplace harassment obviously occurs in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, and I think that's another reason why women we see less women in the bar and in other professions as well.
Yeah, ma'am, that's really true. Yeah. The third question is, What is the Yeheliya Foundation and what is its cause?
So the Helia Foundation is a charitable foundation, and we are basically here to help every woman and girl from all walks of life. So we have realized that in Sri Lanka there is an issue with the economic side, there is an issue with the legal side, there is an issue when you look at how women, the challenges that they have to face, right? So what we want to do is to try to make it a little bit better for women and girls, right? So we look to see if there are gaps. So if you take, sometimes there are gaps in the law, for instance, as a legal professional, I would like to speak about the fact that there are gaps in the law, which we need to realize that there are gaps, we need to realize that there's something wrong with it, and then we need to fix it, right? So we at Helia, we do a lot of policy advocacy, we do a lot of research before we advocate for change, and then we do a lot of awareness, because we realize that people need to know about their rights, they need to know about their laws, they need to understand about the difference between gender and sex, for example. You know, the lack of gender sensitive training is a huge issue that we see. So those are the kind of work areas that Helia is into. We have majority of lawyers, but we have different people from different professions. Unfortunately, we are a majority female based organization, and why I say that's unfortunate is because gender equality, I think, needs to be a race that's won by all of us. So we always appreciate if there are boys and men who want to join us, and we're always giving a call out to them to not see Helia only as an organization that works only for women, right? And to come on board and to kind of help us in this fight for gender equality.
That's a very inspiring foundation, ma'am. So let's move on to the fourth question. Sure. What are your thoughts on feminism? Does Sri Lanka need it?
Yes, of course. I think Sri Lanka very much needs feminism. I think all countries do. Even if you look at the developed countries, they need feminism too. The whole world does. But in comparison to developed countries, I think Sri Lanka, South Asian countries, we really need it. I mean, if you just look at the Sri Lankan news, for instance, right, there is sexual harassment, there are rapes, there are so many things that are happening, and our rates on everything is so high. For instance, we have 4 rapes a day, we have 90% of women who are being sexually harassed when they use public transport. Our laws for abortion are so weak that you cannot get an abortion unless it is to save the life of the mother. We have no protective laws for sex workers, we have no protective laws for those of the LGBTIQ community, so again, women and girls are harassed there. There is a lot of harassment that happens even if you go to the police stations. So if you look at all of these things, marital rape is still, you know, allowed and it's not seen as an offense. There are so many issues, and I think that's why we need feminism, because we need people to come and speak about it, to fight for gender equality, to fight for equity. And I don't think that it's something that only should be done by women, because it's a very, very big, difficult race. And if it's only going to be 52% of our population who is fighting, and even in that 52%, it's a known fact that all women do not fight for their rights, and there are enough women who are trying to put down other women. So we need everybody's support in this fight, and I think feminism is just so important. And I know that a lot of people who are just like, why is it called feminism, why isn't it gender equality, why is there no word man in it, you know, all these ridiculous things. And I think people need to understand that feminism isn't a fight for women only, it's about gender equality. But the name is as such because women obviously, as I have just explained, undergo so many more challenges than men do in any country. And it is to emphasize on that and to not lose focus from that fact that it is called feminism. So yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. The fifth question is gender-based violence a pressing issue in Sri Lanka? Are there adequate laws to support the victims in it?
Yes, I think GBV is a very prevalent issue in Sri Lanka. There are laws. I don't think the issue is very much with the laws. Of course, the laws also have to be amended. If you take, for example, we have the offense of rape, grave sexual abuse, sexual harassment. But yes, if you look at the offense of rape, there are issues in that, because obviously, as you all know, only a man can perpetrate it on a woman. So then only vaginal penetration comes under the offense of rape. If you are married, if you're under the age of 16, it's statutory rape. But if you're married and under the age of 16, then it's not. So all these Muslim girls who are married before they turn 16, again, you know, that's an issue. Then obviously, like I said before, marital rape is not an offense. So while there are laws, there are issues with the law. And when you come out of rape, grave sexual abuse, sexual harassment, you also have the cybercrime offences, which, as you very well know, is a very prevalent offence in our country. And we don't have specific laws for cybercrime. So now that is a problem, because for instance, something that happens all the time, and lots of cases that even I have dealt with, are to do with this distribution of non-consensual intimate images, and we do not have an offense for that as yet, and it's really high time that we did. So we're trying to move it into sexual harassment, we're trying to move it with criminal intimidation, the offenses which we already have, which is fine, but it would be so much better, I believe, if we have specific offenses for these specific wrongdoings that happen in our country. But having said that, more than the issue with the law, I think it's the issue with how it's implemented, how it's enforced. How many people really want to go to the police station and make a complaint? How many people have not been harassed at the police station? How many people have had to do sexual favors to get their complaint written? So it's so scary and it's so difficult for a layperson to go to the police station that I have so many people who call me and they tell me about their issue, which is so grave, but nobody wants to go to the police station. Nobody wants to make a complaint, because either they have been harassed there, they think they'll be harassed there, or worse, they don't think anything will come out of it. And then they think the media might catch, a glimpse of it, or it'll get spread, to the public. And so the issue lies, I think, very firstly and foremostly with the police. And if you stop people making complaints because the police is really bad, then what happens is obviously the justice then doesn't get, doesn't even get started. For it to come to court, it has to go to the police. So I think issues with the enforcement and implementation is an issue, and I think that's why we need a lot of gender sensitive training. We have women and children's desk at police stations, but we don't have a lot of sensitively trained officers to actually sit and listen to your issue, to take it down properly, to be sensitive about it, to be caring about the issue that that person is facing. So if we can make changes there, then I think it will be so much better for our system and for our people.
Yeah, that's really true, ma'am. The fear actually itself doesn't allow people to just come and tell that they face something like this.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next question, what are your thoughts on gendered stereotypes? Do you think they limit people to grow as individuals?
Yes, I think so. I mean, because see, even if you take for instance, something that I saw very recently was this post of children and their parents. So if you're like a father taking care of a child, then it's babysitting. But if you're a mother taking care of the child, then it's parenting, There's this another picture where there's a mother on the phone while she's pushing the pram, and then she's an inattentive mother. But the father who is doing the same thing is a father who is very devoted to the child. So it's very simple things like that. We have had so many different stereotypes from the day you were born. Sometimes this pink and blue colors that we have, these baby showers that we have, and we have from day one instilled these stereotypes. If you go even into sometimes a clothes shop, you'll have all these powerful things for boys and all these really pretty cute things for girls, which is fine, but also I think we need to understand that we need to stop putting a gender to things that don't have a gender, and stereotyping people based on that, because lots of women and girls are finding it really difficult to break these stereotypes, right? So even for us, we have this thing where, okay, you study, you work, and then you get married, and then your biological clock is ticking, and then you need to make children. So it's this pressure, I think, on girls and women. It's very difficult to keep up with, and I know lots of girls who have sometimes cried themselves to sleep because they're feeling so pressured to get married, because there's a stereotype that you need to get married at this particular age and then of course make children. And if it's some girl or a woman or a man or a boy who doesn't want to make children, then they're really looked down upon, why, what is your point of living in this earth,
That's
right?
Really true.
Exactly. So those are issues, and I don't think gender stereotypes is only for girls. I mean, it is mostly probably for women, but also boys are severely affected by it, and sometimes we forget that, and I think that's something that shouldn't be forgotten.
That's true. When you were saying this, I got reminded to that Friends scene where Ross's son was playing with the Barbie.
Exactly.
And how he reacted. I just got reminded to that. So let's move on to the seventh and the final question for this round. This International Women's Day, what's the one life advice you can give to women and girls around the world?
Okay, so I think for women and girls around the world, I just want to say that, go for it, because sometimes we really doubt ourselves, probably because of the pressures that have come from society, and we don't go for it. But I think we need to really put in a lot of effort to break those glass ceilings, to ask for our seat at the table, and that is very necessary. For people who are fighting for women's rights, having all this advocacy events for women and finding it really difficult to keep going, and I understand why it's difficult, but I think we need to keep going because there are so many women before us who did what we're doing now. And I think even simple things like the right to vote, we have it today, which we today might look at it as a very simple thing, is something that we did not have long time ago, and it's because of these women's rights activists that we are here today enjoying so many rights. And that's why I think it's extremely essential that women's rights activists, we keep going forward even though it's very difficult, and women and girls in general, we need to just go for it. I think that's
Those are really inspiring answers, ma'am. So we are moving on to more of a fun segment right now.
Sure.
So it's a rapid fire question.
Okay.
Questions. So I'll be asking you questions. You just answer it as fast as you can.
Okay.
Okay. The first question is, what is success for you?
I think success is just being able to be happy and to do something to make somebody else happy as well.
Okay.
Hope that was fast enough.
So the second question is, what do you think is the key to living a good life?
I think again the key to living a good life is doing what you think is right, irrespective of the fact that you think somebody's judging you, somebody's watching you. Irrespective of all those things, you need to always do what you believe in your good conscience is correct and right, and I think that will be just the way to do it.
Okay, this is another fun question. What is your favorite TV show?
Friends. I don't think that's even no question about it. My favorite TV show is definitely Friends.
Okay, the next question, what motivates you the most?
I think it's to always be better, that need to always be better than I was yesterday, do something today that I didn't do yesterday, be of service to somebody in a bigger way than I was yesterday. So that is, I think, what keeps me going and motivates me to keep getting up every day and do what I do.
Okay. What's the best compliment you've ever gotten?
Oh, I don't know. That's kind of a hard one. I think the best one that I've got is that I have the abilities or skills or whatever it takes to join the judiciary is, I think, the best compliment that I have got, because I think that is something that's been a big goal for me for a really long time. So whenever somebody says, I think you can do it, I feel really good about it. So let's hope it's true.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of all our questions for today, ma'am. Thank you so much for coming to us and helping us with this project. Thank you so much for dedicating your time today as well to come and helping us out.
Thank you for having me.